Hey, it's Jake, and I'm going to cover today how to use multi-reference fields in Webflow with Integromat. And so I got this question over on the Webflow experts Slack and realized that this was also my top idea to cover on my next video. So here we go with the next video. I'm going to make this one pretty quick. Mostly a walkthrough on the basics of it and how I was able to get the multi-reference fields to work properly with Webflow. Because in Integromat, and don't get overwhelmed by this, it's not as crazy as you think. The thing about updating in Webflow with the Webflow Integromat module is that it doesn't always work the way you would like. So you would think I would just, update an item or create an item in there. But it becomes a bit of an issue when you go to pass the ID of the multi-reference object. So to back up for anybody who is new to that, I'm just going to show you real quick how I've got this set up. So on the website, if I hop over to ideas, I basically have a nested collection in here. So I've got my initial collection right here, and then inside of it, I've got another little collection that pulls in the tools used. Actually, just joking, because there is a nested collection limit in Webflow currently, I did the hacky way of doing it, and I have all of the badges possible, so all the different tools. And then what this will do is then hide based on the whichever one is selected. So if this one, if the reference, I'll just show this real quick. So I do have a multi-reference list collection here, and then I've got my tutorials over here. So if I open up this, I've got my tools used right here. And so I've got these options here, and when those tools are present, then those conditional visibility things will kick in right here. It's not my ideal situation, because then if you add another tool, you do have to come in and do this. So hopefully Webflow will improve that and not limit us to 5 nested items. There are tools out there that you can use to get past that. So just keep that in mind if that is something that you are trying to solve. Those workarounds do exist with other tools. And when I say other tools, I mean like add-ons onto Webflow. So it is possible, but that's just how I've got this set up here. So when I did my initial setup, I already had items in ClickUp. So I already had these in here. And so what I wanted to do was tie this tools field, which is in ClickUp. It's basically it's a similar thing, but it's using a label field. And so label fields allow you to select more than one. The thing about these in ClickUp is that they all have their own IDs, as well as in Webflow, these also have their own item IDs. So like right here, we've got this, and then over in tools, if I click into any of these, I'm going to see the item ID right there. So the first thing that's happening here, and by the way this is triggered in my ClickUp is I just have an automation over here, and I've just got a demo one over here with a fake webhook URL. But basically, I just have when the status changes to either voting or update, and these are just custom statuses that I made, then call this webhook. So very, very simple. And so when that gets triggered, then we get this webhook here. The first thing I always do when I'm working with ClickUp is I get the task, because it gets more information than what is sent over in the webhook, and it gets it in a better way as far as custom fields are concerned. And so then I just have a simple thing here that just says send to voting. And this is actually kind of like a fallback, in the sense of like, this is not really filtering. It's just telling me what's happening here. This filter is if I'm setting a status to nope, which means I'm not going to do it for one reason or another. And then I do have two things here, which will just look to see if there's a Webflow ID present, and if it exists, then the assumption is that it already has been published. So let's just do an update instead of a create. And so when I come in here, I'm just creating these different items here. And so I'm not setting the tools used, the multi-reference field, until later when I do this API call. So what I'm doing here is I'm iterating on the tools field from ClickUp. And so in Integromat, you can set an iterator. And what this is great for, and this is one of the things that I love compared to Zapier, is that you can actually work with arrays. Imagine that. So basically what's happening is the custom tools, since it's I'm getting that information in this step. And so what it's doing is, generally there's going to be more than one thing. So it's an array. And so when I come through here, I iterate on the array. So in this case, for this one, there are two, where are they? Right there, two tools. And so this will iterate twice. And what I'm doing is getting a list of the items in that collection. So I have that collection that I showed you called tools. And what I'm doing is just iterating through that. So this is just so that I don't have to keep another, like you could have a Google Sheet or something, but it just adds another level of complexity. And this way I can just do whatever's live on the website. I can grab those tools that exist in Webflow, and then I'm going to match them to the value on that current step. And I will say, in this case, this is an annoyance that I have with Integromat, is even though this value thing here, let me just do it, just throw this into a text editor. But basically, what you see here is this is the step, so it's step 39, and then the value of that. For some reason, it doesn't give me that option here. So you basically, when you run it, you'll have to look and see what's in there, and I'll show that in a second. And so if that ID matches that value, then I'm basically I'm aggregating this with the text aggregator. And the text aggregator is generally like super helpful with the iterate module, because it takes that array and basically flattens it, and you can separate it however you like. And in this case, I'm actually putting it in quotes and including it in here, because I'm going to use it in the next step in the API call. And so in this next step, I'm taking that that little kind of manual array, but I needed it formatted a certain way. So like inside of this API call with this JSON, I needed it to be, each thing inside of it needs to be in quotes separated by commas. And so the reason I used the patch method here, if you look over in the Webflow API documentation, the patch just lets you use, just update the exact information that you want to change. So you don't have to fill the whole body with all the information. So that's kind of nice. And so in here, I've just used the same kind of structure. So collections, the ID, and since I already have the ID from step 2 for the item that got created, I just passed that right there. And then for the item ID, I also get that in step 2. So you can see right here. So item ID, and the collection ID. And then this is just a little query parameter to say that it's going to be live to the site when you publish it. Otherwise, you have to go through, you have to go back to Webflow and publish it, and that kind of defeats the purpose. So that's how I've got this set up. So and I think if you look in here, they've got their little example request. And so this is basically what I'm using. So the name of the field and then what you're changing. And so I've got the name of the field is tools used. So if I look in here, tutorial, I have tools used, and that's the multi-reference field. And then I'm just filling it with that array. So specifically with these multi-reference fields, it's taking an array as the input. And so you just need to make sure that this is formatted, each item is surrounded in quotes with a comma. And you can always, when you run this, you can always do a little, run it through like JSON lint or something like that, just to see if it's valid JSON. So if I run this, and this is old stuff down here, so just ignore that. Sometimes I don't delete these things. Okay, so let's just say that we want to add Integromat to this because that's technically true. And I'm going to change this to update voting page, and that should trigger our flow. Okay. Yeah, and since it was already published, I'm going to zoom in. We'll just walk through these. So I get the task. The main thing I'm concerned with here is custom fields. And the reason, again, that these custom fields are not presented in the same way when you get the initial JSON from the webhook. So that's why I like to do this get task. And the get task just pulls the ID that's passed from the webhook. So here I get my custom fields tools array, and I can see these. Now see, here's the one thing that's a little bit wonky is that in ClickUp, these are stored by their, or these are referenced by their IDs. So if I come into my settings, which one am I looking for? Tools. So I've got all these settings here. These are all done by, they all have unique IDs. So if I just move my face out of the way, one way you can find this is, so what I do actually for these is I'll clear this out. And then when I edit this field, there's other ways to do this, for sure. You can do, in Integromat, you can do a little call to get the available items. But when I'm initially setting it up, what I do, it's kind of lazy. But you can see like available fields here. And if I go down here, oh, weird. All right. Maybe things have changed. So normally when I edit that field, I can just grab and kind of see what's available. It's just passing a, oh, here we go. It's been a while. So you can get the JSON right here, and you have the ID and then the name. Oh, just joking. What am I looking at? Oh, that's totally different. That was looking at all of the available fields. Okay, let me just show you this other way since I'm failing magnificently. But I'm going to leave this in because it takes time to edit. And this is always good to learn, or to, like, you know, fail in public. So these should have had IDs as well. Okay. Well, that's annoying. So I'm definitely getting sidetracked by this. I thought that we should have the ID present. So chance it got changed. And there's also a chance I totally forgot. So what I can do, these have changed a little bit. Yeah, this is the same thing. So what we can do, I know I'm getting sidetracked by this, but I think it is important to show. So give me 1 second. All right. I just wanted to test something real quick. So we have in this initial request, one of the items that's passed is the list ID. So I just kind of scrolled down here, grabbed this list, and then I popped over into a new scenario and just added a list all accessible custom fields from the ClickUp module. It's all the way on the bottom. And what I did was just threw in that list ID right there and ran it. And then I can see right here in the in this first bundle here, I've got each one of those labels and their IDs. And so one thing you can do is you can actually come in here and download the output bundles. And what you can do is, if you're in a hurry, like there's definitely cleaner ways to do this, but you can just run this through like one of those JSON to CSV converters, and you can throw that into a little spreadsheet and grab those. That's one way to work with those. And then the other thing you can do is obviously spit this out into rows in a sheet. So the reason I mentioned this, maybe I should check this out because now, as I said, all that stuff, when we create the item, we're passing, let me just see here. This is one of the fun things about working with old projects. You have to remember what you did. And this is where it would have been helpful to document, but sometimes you create things in a hurry. So let's see here. I think we passed the interesting. Oh yeah. So over in the tools, we have a ClickUp tools ID. So this is what they match on. So I think when I initially created these, I did what I said. So it was good that I covered this. You do need to have, somehow you need to have a corresponding ID with that label. Now you probably could actually, well, no, because we still need the IDs. Actually, there might be a way to do it with kind of matching on text. I just like to match on IDs because it's it's more reliable, especially if the name changes on one side. So I generally work with IDs. So all of that long tangent, I'm going to have to put some good chapters on this one eventually. And the reason we have these two different things, and all I did was I set up this first one and then copied. So Command C, Command V, brought this down here, connected it, and then I swapped out this for an update down here. So we're doing the same kind of things, but since this one was already published, we did this. So when we updated this item, we just passed some of the general information about the task, like this. And this is just kind of differentiating if it's an idea versus a recent video. And then what we do here is we iterate on that tools array. So if you come over here and we look at this output right here, under custom fields, we've got this tools array, and it's got these 3 IDs. So, and actually that is why we need those, that is why we need the ID stored, because it doesn't pass the name of those items. So when we iterate on that, and the way we choose it is it's just under custom fields and then tools. And you can always tell it's an array with the brackets. And you can also see it only shows the first item, but at least gives us the idea of what we're trying to do. So we want the whole array. And then inside of here, this is going to list the items 3 times. So if you have a giant list, it's going to be a little bit less efficient. But in this case, it's not. We don't need to be super worried about performance on this. And so we get those 3 matches, and when the item matches, then we will have it passed to this text aggregator. And so we got the ClickUp Tools ID, and it's going to match that value. And so here's what I'm talking about when I was saying that we needed to kind of make this custom little option here. So for some reason, Integromat is only giving you these 2 options. So like when I come over here, I can only choose these 2 things. So if I choose this, let me just show you what this looks like. If I select this and then copy, throw it into a text editor, I can see the number of the step and then what it's called. So right here is, if I were to do 30.value, I'm going to get this. And so in this case, I would just swap that out, value. If you have a space or anything, you have to use the little ticks. But so then you can just copy that as text, and then you would, I'm not going to put it there, but you would put it right here and just paste it. And so now you have those matching things. So we're matching off of the ClickUp Tools ID in the tools collection, and when it matches the value of that current iteration of the tools array from ClickUp. So once we get that, then all we're doing is putting it in this short little API call right here. And we already have the ID of the collection and the ID of the item. And we're just doing the patch method. And this is why I always recommend people, get used to looking at API documentation. And it's also why I tell companies, you need to have good API documentation that humans can read. It makes a huge difference. So anyway, We've got that. And then what I do in my ClickUp integrations is whenever something is triggered and runs, I have it update with a little comment on the actual task, and it just keeps everybody in the know, or at least, if you're the only one using it, it's still nice to have some sort of feedback. And I do hope ClickUp will add that at some point, some sort of like a toast or something that just says like, hey, this automation ran. It did something. And then this last little part is if it's no longer an idea, which means like today, when I post this, this one will no longer be set as an idea. I cannot say that word. And then it'll get replaced with a link and show up as a regular video. So hopefully most of that was useful, at least some of it. I think the main thing with these videos is you'll find one little thing that, sparks an idea of how you could solve another problem. Because most people probably won't have this exact scenario. But hopefully it gives you some ideas. And let me know if you have any more ideas for new videos, or vote on some of these existing ones. This one just worked out nicely. So actually, let's see if this updated. So if I refresh, yep, got Integromat there now. So there you go. Have a good day.